Glasses will not save your eyesight after 60. Many people believe that simply wearing them is enough to protect their eyes. But the truth is that an invisible enemy is advancing in silence. I am Dr. Ana Esperanza, a medical specialist in eye health and a researcher for more than 20 years, and what I'm about to reveal may change everything you thought you knew about aging and vision. Today, I will show you what science has uncovered about this silent threat that can steal your sight, even if you've never had serious problems before. Write in the comments, "I want to protect my vision," to show that you won't fall into this silent trap, because there is a hidden limit that can decide whether you will see the future clearly or be swallowed by darkness. Once past the age of 60, a dangerous belief circulates like an unquestionable truth that wearing glasses and attending the occasional eye checkup is enough to protect one's vision. But reality is far darker. Most people don't realize that even while they can still see relatively well, a silent process may already be eating away at their eyesight from the inside, leaving no obvious warning signs until it's far too late. It's like a thread unraveling beneath what looks like a perfectly stitched fabric. Outwardly, everything seems intact, but within, collapse has already begun. This invisible enemy doesn't announce itself with pain. It doesn't trigger alarms. Instead, it hides behind symptoms that are dismissed as ordinary signs of aging. Difficulty reading fine print, glare when facing bright lights, or slightly hazy vision in the morning. But these signals are not always harmless quirks of getting older. They can be warnings of progressive breakdown. And the most terrifying truth is this: by the time these symptoms are recognized as serious, the damage is often irreversible. Picture a man in his mid-60s, sitting at his kitchen table, reading the morning newspaper as he's done for decades. One day he notices a line of text looks wavy. A week later, a small cloudy spot intrudes at the center of his vision. He adjusts his glasses, tilts the paper, changes the light bulb overhead. Nothing helps. A visit to the doctor confirms the diagnosis: age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of central blindness. And the cruelest part? That condition had likely been smoldering silently for years, quietly eroding the retina while he thought his glasses were protecting him. And macular degeneration is not the only thief in the dark. Cataracts form slowly, like a fog gradually taking over a clear window. Glaucoma is even more merciless, eating away at the optic nerve without warning. So insidious it's been named the silent thief of sight. There are also tiny retinal microtears, circulation-related injuries that accumulate unnoticed. And once you're past 60, these threats don't simply increase, they multiply. Science reveals there is a critical window of time, a fragile period where prevention and intervention can truly alter the outcome. During this window, choices matter, but the window closes quickly, and each year after 60, the risk of permanent damage rises dramatically. Research shows up to 40% of adults may already harbor microscopic retinal damage without any awareness. Even before noticeable symptoms appear, the body is whispering warnings, but almost no one listens. Worse still, there are hidden accelerators, factors buried in modern life that push the eyes toward failure faster. Hours of exposure to blue light from digital screens, diets packed with processed foods, laden with salt, sugar, and poor quality fats, chronic sleep deprivation that robs the eyes of nightly repair. Even the misuse of popular eye health supplements sold with glowing promises can tip the balance toward degeneration instead of protection. These truths rarely appear in glossy ads or even in doctors' offices. When mentioned at all, they're tucked away in obscure studies, inaccessible to the people who need them most. Have you ever noticed how some people in their 80s still read novels and recognize faces with ease, while others, just past 65, struggle to make out road signs? The difference is not always genetics. Often it lies in hidden variables, unspoken secrets. Whispers among specialists suggest there exists a critical threshold, a point of no return in vision health. Cross that line and decline is no longer a possibility. It's inevitable. Yet the threshold itself is elusive. It's not a number on a chart, not a value in a blood test. It's invisible. and it doesn't announce itself until it's too late. And vision doesn't always deteriorate in dramatic ways. Sometimes the decline is camouflaged in subtleties, a little more difficulty distinguishing shapes in dim light, an unexplained struggle driving at night, colors that once leapt from the world appearing muted, as if life itself has been dulled. These are faint knocks on a faraway door, easy to ignore until suddenly the door bursts wide open. Behind all this is an uncomfortable reality. Glasses, however advanced, do not address the true causes of weakening vision. They are surface-level solutions. They correct how light enters the eye, but they cannot stop the retina from sinning, the lens from clouding, or the optic nerve from quietly eroding. It's like slapping paint over a crack in a foundation. For a while the wall looks fine, but the break widens underneath, spreading silently until collapse is unavoidable. Some specialists speak in hushed tones about studies most people will never read. Research suggesting that everyday habits, once we assume are harmless, can be just as destructive as years of neglect. What you eat, how deeply you sleep, how many hours you stare at screens, even how often you slip on those convenient reading glasses. These choices shape the destiny of your vision far more than most realize, yet the knowledge stays locked away, hidden behind the barrier that separates science from the public. And as we grow older, this barrier thickens. Patients are handed stronger prescriptions, scheduled for surgeries, reassured with cliches about aging, while the data that could change their future languishes in journals and academic conferences. It's as if there is forbidden knowledge, truths that could rewrite the story of aging eyes, but that remain behind closed doors. Anyone who has seen a loved one lose their sight knows how devastating it becomes. It's not just about blurry letters on a page. It's about losing freedom, independence, confidence, the ability to drive, to walk alone without fear, to recognize the face of a grandchild, to savor the glow of a sunset. Darkness doesn't arrive with a single blow. It creeps in gradually, robbing life of its details until nothing is left but shadows. So the question lingers, if the risks are this great, why does the conversation stay so shallow? Why do we keep pretending that glasses and routine exams are enough? Why isn't the real speed of this process explained plainly? What truths are being withheld from the public? After 60, every tiny symptom, every blur, every flicker, every hesitation in focus could be a whisper from the body, warning of something bigger. The difference between listening to those whispers or dismissing them may be the difference between preserving sight or surrendering it to inevitable blindness. And the chilling part is this: those whispers may not be the end. They may only be the beginning of something much darker. If the first shock is realizing that glasses only mask the surface of the problem, the second revelation is even more disturbing. The everyday habits and seemingly harmless choices we make, choices so ordinary we barely notice them, may be quietly accelerating the weakening of our vision. Few dare to say this openly, but mounting evidence suggests that these daily routines can silently corrode the health of the eyes. One of the most insidious villains is prolonged exposure to artificial light. Every day, millions of people sit for hours under the glow of televisions, smartphones, and computers, staring into screens that bathe the eyes in high-energy blue light. At first it seems harmless. There's no pain, no sudden discomfort, no obvious warning, but this light penetrates deep into the eye, striking the macula and damaging the fragile cells that allow us to read, drive, and recognize faces. Imagine a knife scraping against glass, leaving marks invisible at first, but permanent over time. Each hour in front of a glowing screen is another cut, another step closer to irreversible decline. Technology is only part of the story. Modern diets are another hidden saboteur. Shelves in supermarkets overflow with ultra-processed foods, brightly packaged snacks, ready-to-eat meals, drinks loaded with sugar. These products fill the stomach but starve the body of real nourishment. They flood the bloodstream with inflammatory compounds, clog vessels, and compromise circulation. And when blood circulation suffers, the eyes pay the price. The microscopic capillaries that feed the retina grow brittle and leaky, leading to tiny hemorrhages so small they escape detection. Yet each invisible bleed is like a shadow spreading across the visual field. Over years, those shadows merge, forming permanent blind spots. Then there's the matter of sleep, or rather, the lack of it. In a world that glorifies productivity, millions sacrifice rest, unaware of the price their eyes are paying. During deep sleep, the eyes regenerate and flush out metabolic waste. When that cycle is disrupted, ocular fluids stagnate and the optic nerve is deprived of the nourishment it desperately needs. Glaucoma thrives under these conditions, progressing silently for years until one day the damage is irreversible. To think that years of restless nights, shrugged off as normal aging, could be laying the groundwork for permanent blindness is a chilling realization, and perhaps the most unsettling revelation of all lies in the booming industry of supplements and vision vitamins. Shiny bottles promise clarity. Labels boast clinically proven results. Ads flood social media with testimonials of miraculous recoveries. But the reality behind the glossy marketing is far more sinister. In some cases, misuse or excessive intake of these substances can accelerate degeneration instead of halting it. Too much of a good thing, especially antioxidants in unbalanced formulas, can tip the delicate chemistry of the eye toward inflammation. And when harm does occur, the warning signs are rarely shouted from the rooftops. Instead, they're buried in obscure research papers, mentioned in tiny fine print, or whispered in medical forums few will ever find. I will never forget the testimony of Augusto, a 67-year-old man who shared his story at a small, almost hidden medical conference. His words carried the weight of someone betrayed by what he thought was salvation. He explained how, after noticing a gradual decline in his reading ability, he stumbled across an imported supplement promoted as a miracle solution. The testimonials were glowing. The promise seemed irresistible. He bought it. For months, Augusto believed he had discovered a secret weapon. His vision seemed sharper. He could read for longer stretches without fatigue. He even bragged to friends that he was driving at night with ease again. But slowly, strange symptoms crept in. Black dots flickered in his field of vision, appearing and vanishing like shadows darting across a wall. At first he dismissed them, but as the weeks passed, the shadows multiplied. His confidence gave way to fear. He returned to his ophthalmologist. Standard exams revealed nothing unusual. Age-related changes, the doctor said with a shrug, but Augusto knew something was wrong. His world was dimming in ways he couldn't explain. It was by sheer chance that late one night, scrolling through an online academic forum, he stumbled upon a forgotten study. The paper, published years earlier in a specialized journal, detailed rare but dangerous side effects linked to high-dose combinations of certain antioxidants. The symptoms described were identical to his. For Augusto, reading that paper was like opening a classified file never meant for public eyes. He realized, horrified, that his miracle supplement might be accelerating his decline. The betrayal cut deep. No one had warned him, not his doctors, not the manufacturers, not the cheerful advertisements promising eternal clarity. His story is more than just a cautionary tale. It is a mirror reflecting a much larger problem: silence. The truth is often inconvenient, even unprofitable for powerful industries. Glasses, surgeries, supplements. These markets thrive by selling half-truths, by offering band-aids while ignoring root causes. As long as people believe these solutions are enough, the machine keeps turning. And all the while, countless individuals like Augusto march steadily toward blindness, deceived by promises that do nothing to stop the silent rot within. And supplements aren't the only shadows. Even established treatments sometimes conceal hidden risks. Consider cataract surgery, one of the most common procedures worldwide. For many, it restores vision. But for some, unexpected distortions emerge afterward. Halos around lights, muted colors, or a nagging sense that the world is somehow less vivid. These stories rarely make headlines. They remain footnotes in technical reports, shared quietly among specialists, but never disclosed to the average patient. What should have been the beginning of clarity instead becomes a descent into a different kind of darkness. The pattern is impossible to ignore. Screens, processed foods, sleepless nights, supplements, surgeries. Each piece seems isolated, but together they form a sinister puzzle. The true enemy of vision after 60 is not just time. It is the accumulation of invisible choices. And the most unsettling reality is that far too often the silence is deliberate. It is easier and more profitable to sell illusions than to confront the messy, uncomfortable truths. And so the question lingers in the shadows. How many people right now believe they are protecting their eyes, when in fact they are unknowingly feeding the very decline they fear? How many, like Augusto, swallow brightly colored pills each morning, certain they are preserving their sight while unknowingly planting the seeds of blindness? The truth is grim. This enemy doesn't strike with thunderclaps or lightning bolts. It doesn't arrive with sudden pain. It slips in quietly, like nightfall creeping over a horizon. By the time most realize what has happened, the darkness has already taken hold. That is the silence in which the real danger thrives. And here is the most haunting part. Even when you think you've uncovered the worst, there's always something darker, something even more terrifying, waiting just beyond the shadows. As we venture deeper into this maze of hidden truths, one conclusion becomes unavoidable. Vision after 60 is not a gentle decline, but a precarious walk across a rope suspended above a silent abyss. On one side, there are habits and strategies that can prolong clarity. On the other, invisible forces wait patiently for the smallest mistake to pull the eyes into darkness. Every gesture, every choice, every routine becomes another step forward. Some steps lead toward light, others toward the void. Doctors often point to the hopeful side. A plate of spinach or kale, full of lutein, can act like protective armor for the retina. Carrots and peppers, glowing with carotenoids, help shield against oxidative stress. Fatty fish, rich in omega-3s, improve circulation and reduce inflammation. Even a simple daily walk can boost oxygen delivery to the tiny vessels that feed the eyes. These recommendations sparkle like beacons of hope, clear evidence that the decline of vision is not inevitable. But in every light, there is a shadow. The very sun that nourishes our biology can also destroy. Its ultraviolet rays scorching the retina with invisible burns. Antioxidants, protective in moderation, can turn toxic when consumed recklessly, reversing their benefit and igniting harmful inflammation. Even those walks in the fresh air, celebrated as healthy, can betray us when the air itself is polluted, laced with microscopic particles that scratch and inflame ocular surfaces like shards of glass carried on the wind. This cruel irony creates a dangerous paradox. Everything that seems to protect can also, under the wrong circumstances, destroy. Preserving vision after 60 begins to look less like a straightforward path and more like navigating a minefield where every step carries both promise and peril. And it is within this field of uncertainty that whispers emerge, whispers about the existence of a critical threshold. Specialists rarely talk about it in public, but behind closed doors, many admit that such a threshold exists. It is not just about genes or chance. It is a biological tipping point, the moment where cumulative damage surpasses the eye's ability to repair itself. Before this point, there is still resilience, still a margin of recovery. Beyond it, decline accelerates with frightening speed, unstoppable, merciless. The most terrifying part, this threshold does not appear on test results. No scan, no chart, no annual exam points to it clearly. It exists silently, like a trap waiting to be sprung. And yet, the body does send out clues. Subtle ones, hard to notice. A little more time needed to adjust when stepping from bright sunlight into a dim room. A faint struggle to read labels that used to be clear. A sense that colors no longer sing with the same vibrancy, as though life itself has been muted. Most dismiss these signs as just age, but they are whispers, early knocks at the door of the critical threshold. Take the case of a retired teacher. She prided herself on her healthy lifestyle. She never smoked, avoided junk food, wore sunglasses religiously, and kept up with yearly checkups. At 61, She began to notice that reading small print in the evening took extra effort. She shrugged it off. At 63, the blur spread to daytime reading, though tests still looked normal. By 65, she had difficulty recognizing faces in a crowd. When doctors finally confirmed she had passed the threshold, it was irreversible. Her meticulous care had slowed the process. But it had not been enough. The invisible line had been crossed without warning, without fanfare, and these stories multiply. In clinics across the world, in whispered conversations after appointments, people discover the same cruel truths. They did everything right, and still the decline came. That is the most unsettling aspect of the threshold. It does not discriminate between the careless and the cautious. It stalks everyone. But the threshold is not purely biological, it is psychological. Fear itself becomes a silent accomplice. The dread of losing sight paralyzes. Many delay doctor visits, convincing themselves they still have time. Others waste precious years chasing miracle pills, glowing advertisements, or procedures that promise more than they deliver. Each hesitation, each delay, is another step toward the irreversible. Behind this silence looms an even more sinister suspicion. The medical world knows more than it tells. Reports softened, statistics adjusted, uncomfortable findings buried in technical journals or hidden behind paywalls. Discoveries that could empower the public remain trapped in conferences where only specialists listen. Meanwhile, ordinary people are reassured with cliches about just aging, given stronger glasses, and told to wait and see. But waiting is what allows the threshold to close in faster. Crossing it feels nothing like a warning siren. There is no sudden agony, no dramatic collapse. It comes as a gradual dimming, a slow erasure of detail, until one day the truth can no longer be denied. The world has grown hazy, faces lose shape, colors fade, words blur on the page, and by the time the person realizes what has happened, the threshold has already been crossed, the point of no return. Some still cling to a fragile hope. They double down on sleep. They cut their screen time. They protect themselves from glare. They choose fresh, unprocessed foods. And yes, these habits can buy time, sometimes years. But even hope comes with shadows. What works for one may fail for another. What helps today may harm tomorrow. Protecting vision after 60 is like walking through dense fog. Every step could reveal firm ground or a hidden drop. And perhaps the darkest truth of all is this: no one knows when the line will be crossed. For some, it may be decades away. For others, it could be waiting just around the corner. And some may already have passed it without realizing, only to wake up one morning to a world forever changed. There exists a point of no return, a threshold beyond which the battle is lost, and almost no one dares to speak its name. We have now reached the point where every piece falls into place. From the beginning, we've spoken of subtle signals, invisible threats, and risks hiding within daily routines. But here comes the final truth. After 60, it isn't just time that determines whether you will keep your vision or fall into darkness. A network of silent factors, ignored by most, decides who will preserve clarity and who will unknowingly cross the line of no return. Conventional medicine prefers to simplify. It is easier, more comfortable to tell people that vision loss is just aging. But the reality you've seen here tells a different story. Sight can, in many cases, be preserved for far longer than we are led to believe, but only if the hidden enemies are faced directly. What's at stake is not just the ability to read a page or recognize a familiar face. It's the power to keep experiencing the world in its fullness. Colors, horizons, memories, the very fabric of life. And here is the unsettling truth. There is no miracle pill, no magical supplement, no quick fix that guarantees protection. What exists are choices, small ones, daily ones, choices that, when repeated, build a shield, sleeping deeply enough for the eyes to heal, limiting the endless glow of screens, guarding against harsh light, eating real, unprocessed food. These are not glamorous solutions. They are not printed in glossy ads, yet they are what truly push back the approach of the critical threshold. And still, something darker remains. Even those who do everything right are not entirely safe. Biology sometimes asserts itself, regardless of human effort. This is the taboo. The truth few dare to say out loud. We cannot control everything, but that is precisely why action is urgent. The invisible line is always there. We cannot erase it, but we can decide how quickly we approach it. Behind the silence lies a machine built on profit. Glasses, surgeries, treatments, supplements. Billions move through these industries every year. As long as people believe these quick fixes are enough, the gears keep turning. But what you've heard here opens a crack in the illusion. Darkness does not fall all at once. It seeps in slowly, quietly, step by step. Those who ignore the whispers lose their chance. Those who listen can gain what many consider impossible: time. Sometimes years of clear sight. This is the revelation few dare to put into words. Vision is not lost in a single blow. It crumbles in fragments. And every decision you make after 60 either accelerates or slows this erosion. No absolute promises exist, but awareness itself is power. And that awareness is what separates those who stumble blindly across the threshold from those who fight to keep the light burning until the very end. What you do with this truth is yours to decide. But remember, ignoring the signals, clinging to empty promises, can cost more than your sight. It can cost you the clarity of your future. If you've made it this far, show that you refuse to let darkness steal your light. Write in the comments, "I want to see until the end." It is not just a phrase, it is a declaration, a refusal to surrender. Because in the end, the choice between light and shadow is closer than you think. And the question remains, when your moment comes to face the threshold, will you be ready, or will you be swallowed by the dark?